Hey guys, it's Jamie Scrimger here, second wife, stepmom of 3, and mom of 1. And you're listening to my podcast, where we talk about all things motherhood, stepmotherhood, and living a kick-ass life. If you're ready for raw and real conversations and are striving to live your very best life, then you are in the right place. Every week, I'll provide you with tips and strategies and mindset shifts to inspire you to live your own version of a kick-ass life, while bringing you along as I create my own. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. So I found this week's podcast guest on my newsfeed, my Facebook newsfeed of all places. She wrote a post about how as parents, we need to stop raising entitled children that ended up going wild on the internet, striking a chord with so many. So after reading this random post on my Facebook newsfeed, I knew I needed to talk to this woman. Lisa Collum is a mom of 4. She is an educator. She is a principal of her own school. She is a speaker. She's an entrepreneur and the CEO of 2 very successful businesses. In this episode, she dives into all that she has going on, so I'm going to leave the full intro to her, but let me just say she is one inspiring woman. We talk about everything from what parents are doing to create entitled children in our society, how this makes it difficult for educators to help them thrive, the importance of finding your child's own learning style and gifts in life, where the traditional education system is holding some kids back, entrepreneurship, what it takes to start a successful business, and how she manages all that she manages with 4 kids in tow. I hope you love Lisa just as much as I do. This episode is jam-packed with aha moments, so let's dive right in. All right, Lisa, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with me today.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so you know what? Before we dive into all the things I want to chat with you about, for those who aren't familiar, can you give us your elevator pitch? Like, who are you? What do you got going on? You've got businesses, you got kids, you got a lot. So give us the lowdown on all things Lisa.
Yeah, so basically my intro as always, I'm a mom of 4 and I own 2 businesses. So I own Top Score Writing, which is where I write curriculum, and I own a small private school called Coastal Middle and High School. And I am daily just trying to juggle it all.
Yeah, aren't we all, right? So
Yes.
Tell us, so you run a private school. So do you teach in the private school?
No, so I'm the principal. I have an assistant principal as well as 4 teachers. So I'm in and out of there daily. Luckily, it's close to my house. But when I first started the private school, I was the main teacher. And as we've been growing and both businesses have been growing, I've moved, into the sole principal role. And luckily, have a very good team.
That is key. I'm learning that more and more. And so with your other business, you write curriculum for other schools then?
Yeah. So I write curriculum that teachers use in schools or parents use at home to teach kids how to write, like how to write an essay. So how to take your thoughts and put them on paper in an organized way. And it's a very step-by-step, very easy approach to writing since most kids and teachers are kind of scared of writing. And I sell my curriculum to various schools across the nation. And like I said, there are a lot of homeschool parents or just parents that want extra help that will purchase the curriculum as well.
Oh, I love it. That is so important. Now, did you always do this or how did you become this entrepreneur?
So it was definitely not in the plan. I'm glad it worked out, but it was not part of the plan. In all honesty, I'm not a business person at all. I was teaching, and I had wanted to be a teacher since I was 5 years old. Everyone who ever knew me knew I was going to be a teacher. So I get my first job out of college, and the principal tells me I'm in charge of teaching writing. So I'm like, okay, just give me my curriculum. I'll study it. And I was so excited. And she looked at me and said, there's really nothing for writing. We have reading, math, science, social studies, but there's nothing for writing. And I was like, oh, okay. And I happened to be at like a really low performing school. It was a Title I F school, which if you're not familiar with like school grades, that's the lowest one they can get. And it's being Title I means that many of the students are on free and reduced lunch. So I knew I was working with a low group of students. And then on top of that, I didn't have any resources. So I started digging and really found nothing. I found a couple books here and there, and that's kind of what sparked all of this, because that year I just had to kind of make up my own stuff, pull from what I knew, pull little things from various resources, and then just make it work for my kids. And a lot of it was trial and error. But my whole idea behind my way of teaching is always that I think every kid can learn. I don't care how low you are or whatever the issue is, if you just simplify it and make it work to their learning. So I did that. I broke down every step of writing in a really simple way, and I taught them. And that year, prior to me coming in, they were at about 38% proficiency. But by the end of the year, with me, they went to 95% proficiency. So 95% of the students were passing the state exam. And so it was, a huge deal. And I went on for a couple years to continue doing that. And I was able to get 100% of my students passing, which was kind of unheard of. I was actually investigated twice by my state because I didn't believe that could actually happen. Which was kind of like, really? But I think it was, we were a low performing school and they just didn't believe. I think they thought we were cheating or something, but they came in every time. They cleared us. They just had to do their job, I guess. But I went on and shared. I really didn't have lesson plans. I just shared my ideas and ways of teaching and different resources I had come up with a bunch of teachers and schools. I moved into they call it a writing coach, where you work with different teachers, and a writing specialist, where you work with various schools. And it wasn't until I left the district completely. I'd had my third son, and I took a job teaching online so I could stay home and teach from the computer. And it was at that point everyone started calling that I had worked with before, and they all were like, "Where did you go? We need you. Where are those resources? You got to tell us all the ways that you taught writing." And I was like, "I left. I'm not with the district anymore." And they're like, "Can you write it down? We'll buy it." And literally, like, light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, "Oh, well, that'd be kind of cool. I could share my stuff, make some money on the side." And I ended up writing some stuff down. It was like nothing. It was like 20 lessons in a small binder. And I sold it for like $50 or something. And everyone started buying it. And then I started adding to it, making it better. And then before I knew it, I had to quit my online job. And I had a big binder of lessons. And I was working with different districts across my state. And then from there, it's just become this nationwide program where thousands of schools are using it. So it's awesome because I've been able to take what I know works and help students and teachers and spread it, have an impact among many schools and students. So it was never really my plan to be a business owner, but that's how it happened. And I've, moved away from binders and now have books and everything's all professional now. But I truly did start from the very, very, very beginning of like basic business stuff and had to learn along the way.
Yeah. And you know what I love about that, on top of the fact that you're helping so many people, is that you created a business out of a need that you had for yourself. Like you needed this support and you kind of needed this curriculum. And then so when you didn't have it, you created it and then it spiraled from there.
100%. Yep, that's exactly it. And, the school kind of fell into the whole thing with a couple years into my business. I found out about this school, and, the school is my nonprofit. And I always say it causes me the most money, the most stress, the most time, but it is 100% for those kids, because my school is for for whatever the reason is, regular public schools not working for these kids, whether they've been, they've dropped out, they're failing, they're behind in courses, they're being bullied, they have ADHD, whatever the issue is, they need something different. And that's my school. So I'm kind of like, I always say they're second, but maybe even third, but kind of their last chance, before they do drop out and never go back. And so, we have a very different environment. It's small, it's family-like, it's flexible. We have lots of breaks. I figure out, parents will come to me and say, he just doesn't like school. He just doesn't learn well. And I always say, well, I'm going to figure out the way he does learn best, and then we're going to make that work here. So we're able to really zone in on kids and figure out their best learning style and apply it to our teachers, or teachers can apply it when teaching them, and then they're very successful with us.
I love it. It's so important because, we're boxing kids in and we're saying, this is how you need to learn, or this is, the curriculum that you need to be successful. And more now, like we're having conversations actually right now in our family about post-secondary and what's next for the kids, because we have two teenagers in the house, and next year my stepdaughter is going to be applying to schools, and it's just not the way it used to be. You can learn so much even on the internet now. Like success in school, we box people in, and it's not the be all and end all. Like we can do things in a flexible way, and kids can be just as successful or even more when they become adults based on that.
Right. And that's what I always say. I've been an educator. I work with, I sell curriculum to public schools, and it bugs me because it's this one size fits all. Everyone's got to fit inside the box. And I think if anything we've learned is that everyone learns differently. And you can see that just as adults. And, sitting there being lectured to or having to do, tons and tons of homework for no reason, just little things, all these tests, and some kids aren't good test takers, and everyone has ADHD now. Well, that's a whole nother podcast. But, I just think that we're all wired a little different. It's hard for me to sit for an hour and listen to somebody. So I think, we just need to kind of figure out what every kid needs. And trust me, I've been in the public school. We try, we go to tons of trainings on differentiated instruction, but it's hard with 30 kids in a classroom. It's hard with the discipline and trying to figure out what every kid needs. So that's the beauty of the private school. I'm able to keep it small. And for the kids, some kids do fine. I did perfectly fine in public school with a million kids, but like my brother, for example, did not. And I always compare it because we're from the same family, but he was not a school kid. Mm-hmm. And he is a hands-on, fixing cars, fixing things kind of learner. And that's fine. It's okay if you're not like the CEO of a company. It's okay if you're an electrician or a plumber doing it. I had something break at my house I need an electrician for. I couldn't get anyone for weeks. I'm like, we need more, people with trade skills. So I feel like we're just kind of putting everyone in this box. And I want to be able to provide a way for those that don't fit inside it to still be successful and know that they can be successful, because they come to me and they're done. They just have written themselves off as a failure and they're not going to do good in school. Mm-hmm. And I really try to change that.
And when it really comes down to it, it's not even an academic piece. That's a confidence piece, right? You're teaching life skills too. The fact that there's a different way of doing things, or that they can be confident in themselves. Because I do feel like when kids aren't thriving in the traditional school system, they get down on themselves and they kind of, are written off when That's not the case.
Yep. And you hit it right there. That's it. Academics, yes, they're important, but I am more worried about that person building confidence and having some set plan for the future, whether it's college, maybe it's not, maybe it's going to a trade school, maybe it's jumping into the workforce, whatever that is. I want to give them the skills they need and the confidence to be successful, and or even some of them have no clue, kind of help them find that path. So, I always, when I have conversations with different people, yes, academics are important, but we've got to build people that are successful for the real world, that have these skills and know how to deal with bumps in the road along the way, things like that.
Yeah, for sure. And, a conversation we've actually been having at home with my husband and I, and we're talking to my stepson about, is it's sometimes about not what you're learning, it's about learning to learn, because that's where you're going to find success in life, because you don't know all the answers. You're always learning. There's always new ways of doing things. Yes. So figuring out how you learn as an individual is key, because we don't even know what the jobs are going to be in 30 years from now, right? There's so many things that are changing, and people it's not the way it used to be, and you obviously know this, people aren't in the jobs that they thought they were going to be for the rest of their life. Like I did not know that I would be running a business to help stepmoms. Like that's literally what I do. And that, going back to what sparked your business, is that came from a need that I had, right? And I've been able to figure out how to do all of that just from the internet. And I'm sure you Google everything, how did you build your business? Google, I'm always asking Google. But that is not about my education. That's about my ability to learn, right?
Right, exactly. And that's truly it. Figuring out your learning style. And, there's lots of little things you can do online, but a lot of it's just trial and error and and trying different things in your own schoolwork, or if you're, older in your work, you just have to figure out what way works best for you. And it could be a combination, but not everyone's meant for the same way. And I see that just in even my small group of kids, and even in my own kids. I have four of my own kids, and I mean, my first two, I don't even like look at their papers half the time. They're fine on their own. My third one, I'm all over him, but he
Mm-hmm.
needs that. And he's my kid. My other two come in after school. They run into their rooms, go on video games. My third one, he's outside with my dad in the yard building something all the time. So is he not as smart or not going to be a good school kid? No, he's just a different learning style, and that's okay.
Yeah,
And
totally
we're all
okay.
from the same family. So I'm always, trying to say with parents, they're like, oh, I don't know what's wrong. My one son, I don't get it. And I'm like, they're all different. Even though they're all from the same family, they still have different learning styles, and you just have to embrace it and work with them.
Yeah, and that's so interesting just how kids from the very same family and the very same upbringing can be so completely different.
Yes, it's crazy, but I try to share that as much as possible because I don't want. I've dealt with so many parents. I've besides my business, I've always tutored on the side, and that's part of my top scoring business. And I get these parents, and they're just so lost as far as their one kid, and they're like, my other ones were great writers and did this and that, and I don't get it. And I have to always say it's okay. We just have to teach it to them in a way that works for them, and just kind of embrace what they're good at. And if they're not the best writer in the world, let's just get them to the best they can be, and then kind of go from there. So it's just constantly reminding them that that's okay, and it's not that they're any less or not as smart.
Mm-hmm. And, I'm sure this business and this has been your baby, right? Like you built this. This is not from anyone else. And what I love about you is that in this conversation, we can talk about parenting, we can talk about education, but we can also talk about entrepreneurship, which is something that I really want to start talking about because I love talking about it. I'm super passionate about it. But you're talking a lot about hiring a team on your social media right now and
Yes.
what that's done for you, for your ability for work-life balance, whatever that is, and, just to build your business. And can we kind of dive into that? Like how has building a team helped you and your business? Like what has that done for you as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, this has been a huge learning experience for me, but by far the best thing I ever did. And I think, you refer to it as my baby, which I always say this is my baby, and it was hard for me to let go. And for so long, I was on my own, and I felt like, I had my way of selling it, and I had my way of answering the phone, and I had my way of doing trainings, and I always had my way. And I was afraid if I handed it to anyone else, they weren't going to do it right, or they were going to not get the sale, or it was just very hard for me to let go, especially the training piece, because schools, they pay a lot of money for me to come out and train the teachers, and it's a really good in-depth training. And I just kept thinking, how can I train someone else to do this? Like it's mine. I made it. Like I totally made it up. It's all from my thoughts and my experiences. And yeah, I can train them, but they won't have all my stories, and they won't have all my jokes, and all. It's just it was a lot of what if, what if, what if. And so there's kind of two big things I did with a team. I've had my business for almost 9 years, and for the first seven, I was 100% by myself, and I grew it, but it was very slow, and it was nothing too major. And then I got to the point where I thought, business is not my thing. I don't know what to do for marketing. I don't know how to do a sales cycle with the right pitch and the right time. And I had no set of like keeping track of who put in quotes and who I followed up with. And I'm an educator. Like that's just not my cup of tea. So 2 years ago, I made a really big switch, and I hired a business development team. And they're a group, they're called the MAGS group, and they have their own team of people that help with all of that. So I have marketing and sales and record keeping as far as like our purchase orders and things like that. And I found out real quick that I am able to do 10 times more with having a team, because they took a lot of the simple things off my plate, but they also help with a lot of the bigger things. Before I knew it, instead of making 5 calls a day, I was able to make 25 calls a day. And before I knew it, instead of, getting a few of the sales pitches, I was able to get tons of the sales because I had multiple people calling, and I had people that was their specialty. I'm horrible at sales. Like I had people call me and they're like, "Do you think you can give me a discount?" I'm like, "Sure, no problem."
Yeah, and
That
we'll
was
throw
just
in
me.
lunch.
Yeah, I'm like, "Nope, yeah, of course, for your whole team, of course, yeah." And so I'm just that's not my thing, but salespeople are awesome at that. And they get done talking to a school, and a school that wanted to purchase one is suddenly purchasing 10 kits because they're just good at sales. And so that was huge for me. I literally tripled my sales in 1 year with this company, like tripled just by having a team. And then it got to the point where my next step was, okay, Lisa, everyone wants a training and you can't be in 10 places at once. We need more trainers. And I was like, no, I can't give up training. That's my thing. I just don't know if they're going to do a good job. And I had to let that go. And this year was the first year, just this past August, like a month ago, I actually trained about, I think there were 7 other people, and I trained them on how to do my training. We did a bunch of practice runs. They came and watched me do it. And then in August, we all went out and did trainings in various locations. And let me tell you, we did in 1 week what used to take me an entire month. I mean, we did, I think there were 16 trainings in 1 week because we were all over the place, and you can do, 2 or 3 a day depending on the time. And I remember getting done with that week and thinking, I can't believe this just happened. Like, we just knocked out an entire month of trainings. I was able to take on so many more trainings for schools, help so many more teachers, and I got nothing but great feedback. So for me, it was just like, you can let it go, Lisa. I'm still not in charge of the sense of being like in charge of people, but I can still see what's kind of going on, like making sure the trainings are, on the right topic and making sure that they're trained. But it has grown my business to something I never ever thought it could be, and it's just from having a team in place.
Yeah, and I'm in the process right now of really building my team out, and I have, a few different girls who work for me and help me out with different things, but it's crazy, first of all, how hard it is to let go, cuz again, this is my baby, and I did this cuz I love supporting stepmoms and talking about things that people don't want to talk about. And
Hmm.
so this was, I made this out of nothing. So delegating to people can be so hard because you feel like your way is the only way, when
Exactly.
sometimes if you can just get out of your head. And honestly, I'm working on it. I'm sure there's people who are on my team right now who're like, yeah, Jamie, keep working. But just being able to let it go and trust that there are other people who are capable as well. And you know what's crazy though? I think that's not even just about entrepreneurship, that's motherhood too.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, like you can bring that back to like, how do you manage your house? Like, you can ask for help. You can ask for, people to do things for you. You can delegate both in business and in motherhood, and it helps you get more stuff done in both respects.
It does. It's amazing because I never thought of it like that. Like I knew it'd be helpful, but I never thought of how much more could get done and I could grow. And I've had to say, and I've explained this to a couple people too. I've acknowledged that education is my specialty, and I'm not good at the business end of things. Like sales is not my thing, and marketing is not my thing. And so I've had to realize, people pay me because my specialty is education. I need to pay people. Yes, it's going to cost money, but for their specialty. And just in like social media marketing alone with Top Score, I mean, I never knew the things you could do with that. I mean, they're
Hmm.
reaching people in different states and have all these different groups going on where people teachers are talking back and forth, and we have ambassador programs, and we're doing these email lists. And I just would have never, maybe I would have learned along the way, but I don't think to this degree because that's their specialty.
Hmm.
And, for me, I had to, as a business person, I'm like, well, I didn't even have a budget. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I just have my bank account and I just kind of go from there. And I had to literally sit down and be like, okay, I need to find someone who can help me with this. And that's part of, what the MAGS group did, because they have all the different people in those different specialties. And it just, I mean, I tell everyone, I'm like, it 1 year made all the difference in the world. And I just, highly, if you can afford it or get to that point in your business, getting a good team where people have their specialty is something I highly recommend. Just it makes all the difference. And it just goes to show we all have our thing and we're good at it, and we just have to find the right people.
Yeah, for sure. And, if you could rewind back to though before you were in the position where you could hire the team, what would you say to someone who has an idea and, is kind of like, oh, maybe I should start a business or I should start an online platform or, I want to take this idea to the next level because I think that's what sometimes holds people back is they think, well, I need to hire out. I need to figure out how to do all these things. I need, people to help me.
Hmm.
And you're a prime example. You did this all on your own. Like you literally figured it out on your own. And it wasn't until, last year. How many years in was that?
Right. I mean, I was 7 years, 100% on my own.
Right. And you made it work. You
Oh,
were still
yeah.
successful and you still made it work. So, I never want people to feel like they have to start with a team in order to be successful. I did everything on my own until recently as well. It's just that is possible too. You just kind of you get to that tipping point where you're like, I'm ready to take it to the next level.
Right. And I think that's just it. That's like next level. But I mean, I was uh, very successful completely my own. And I always tell everyone, um, my number one piece of advice is to start it on the side. Like especially, I mean, I get it. I'm a mom. I was never in a place just to quit my job. Like that was just
Mm-hmm.
not in my deck of cards. So like I never just jumped ship and started doing this. I always was doing something full time and this was on the side until I was making enough money and I was secure and able to officially do this. So, my first 3 or 4 years, I was teaching online all day, and then I would do this at night. So I was teaching for virtual school online. I'd get done around 4 every day, and then I'd go to Office Max, make my copies of the binders. I'd come home, my kids and my husband helped me hole punch them. We make the binders, we go ship them at UPS, and I was doing that all on the side. And so, like, I have a friend who wants to do interior design, and right now she's a pharmaceutical rep. And I said, start it on the side. Take a few clients for a cheap price on the side and start building your portfolio. Post it on social media. And then hopefully, 2, 3, maybe, who knows, 5 years down the road, you'll have enough to where you can go, okay, I have enough clients. I've done enough business where I can quit my full time job. But I think doing it on the side just to see and also just accepting failure. I mean, I tried to open a tutoring center like 3 years ago and completely flopped. I mean, like I was like paying to keep the place open, and I realized I just don't have the time, and there's just not enough with tutoring to have an entire tutoring center dedicated to writing. Um, but that I still do tutoring, but it's just that was like one fail along the way that it didn't work. But I think starting it on the side is huge because you just kind of have to build it and then from there decide. And
Yeah.
just know that, like, I mean, for 5, 6 years, all I did was email people and post on social media, and that was enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I said this the other day. I was doing, I think I did a post about this, or I was talking with someone. I said, I gave a lot in the beginning, like free samples, like my lessons. So if I had, 50 lessons, I would send out like the first 5 for free. Or to sign up for my email list, you get the first 5. Or I'd hand my binders out to a couple of local schools of the teachers I knew, and I'd say, hey, I'm gonna let you use this for free. Can you give me some feedback and post about it and share it with your friends? And I did a lot of that, or a discounted price at in the beginning, and word spreads.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
just things like that.
And I think that it's so important to realize you have to be passionate about it. I think that there's a lot of people who look at entrepreneurs and people are, posting everything online and it's all a highlight reel. It really, we're posting about a lot of the successes and you can see the next steps and you can see people's business evolve. But, you probably got a lot of no's. I know I have had a lot of no's. I've had a lot of days where I have questioned myself and wondered whether it is worth it. And there are a lot of hard days in
Hmm.
entrepreneurship. So, going back to your interior design friend, if she really loves it, if she's super passionate about it, she's going to want to do it on the side. That's going to be, interesting for her and exciting for her. And I think it's important when it comes to being your own boss and starting your own gig, you have to have that desire and that why and that passion because that's what's going to keep you going because it's not all easy. There's a lot people fail so many times along the way.
Oh gosh, and that's just it. I mean, you almost have to go into it knowing, okay, there's going to be failures, there's going to be no's, and that's okay. Like when I'm talking like in podcasts or different interviews, I always share there was one point in the very beginning of my business venture with Top Score that I was working with a district close to me, and they're a very big district, and I only had about 20 of their schools, but those schools did really good one year. So the following year, almost all their schools wanted to buy it. It was close to 50 or 60 schools, and they were all calling and ordering. And in that same week, for some reason, I still don't know to this day, that school district put a complete ban on purchasing from my company. So literally, my whole side hustle just went to zero. That was in the very beginning. And at one point, I was like, I'm just gonna have to close it down. There's no point. And I was talking to another principal friend, and she was like, "Who cares, Lisa? Go to another district." And I was like, "Oh." She's like, "Yeah, just go sell somewhere else." And I was like, "But this is my county." And she's like, "It doesn't matter. Go somewhere else." And I just started pitching it to other people and sending emails and free lessons. And before I knew it, I had other districts, and then it just started to spread. But that was a huge, like, I guess not a failure on my part, but a huge bump in the road, because my whole side hustle, was right here in my district, and then all of a sudden it was no more purchasing, and all those huge orders just went. It was nothing. I had to cancel everything.
Wow. Yeah. And people don't see that, right? They don't even understand how that feels when you're going to bed at night and you've got that big no, or you've got that big bump. It can be debilitating for sure.
Yeah, because you start to second guess yourself. I mean, I always talk about self-doubt. I mean, I don't think these last 2 years, I mean, yes, I've been, my business has grown, but I've just I feel like I finally have proved myself. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I hate that. I hate that I had to do that to get to this point. And if I, could take anything back, it would to have that self-confidence from the beginning, because I always doubted, like when people said no, I would be like, well, maybe I am wrong. Maybe my curriculum isn't the right way, or maybe this, and I don't know if I can do this. And I just constantly did that. And now I've worked with so many schools, and I have data to back it up, and I have so many people sharing the successes that I've finally am like, I really can't say I have any, my confidence as far as my curriculum is there. Like, I'm not lacking that at all, because I know it works and I know it's what's best for kids. But for so long, oh my goodness, every time there's a bump in the road, I would start to self-doubt. And I'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I shouldn't do this. I should go back to teaching. I'm not made for this.
And I think that comes with time too. And I think
Yeah.
that's also another thing that people, when they're watching entrepreneurs online, they don't see. They don't see the self-doubt. They don't see the times that we question ourselves over and over again. Like, they don't see the no's. So I think it's really important to have those conversations so that people know that's part of it. When you start something, I'm sure there's going to be moms who are listening to this who want to start something, who have this idea, but they're scared to do it. They're scared to take the leap. You just got to do it. And you're going to doubt yourself. You're going to have days where you're like, what the hell am I even doing? But
Yeah.
everyone feels that way. You just have to push through it.
You have to. And I literally just posted last night a picture of my daughter jumping into our swimming pool. And my post was, sometimes you just got to jump in and go for it. And just
Mm-hmm.
know there's failures, but you got to stop talking about it, stop thinking about it, and just try it. And my friend who wants to be the interior designer, she reached out a couple weeks ago after I posted something, and it was about just going for it and trying it. And she said, "Well, where am I supposed to start?" And that's where we got in that whole conversation about doing on the side. I said, "You just got to start somewhere. Just go for it. Try it. And if
Mm-hmm.
that way doesn't work, try another way." Luckily, it all worked out for me, and I was kind of almost pushed into it in a good way, because everyone started calling, because I would have never thought, let me put this together and sell it. I never thought about that. But I think if we just really set our minds to it, and you had a keyword, passion. You got to be passionate about it, because you'll fight for it. And if you really feel strongly about it, you'll keep pushing for it through all the bumps in the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the reason why I ended up, finding you online, and what really kind of drew me to you and your business, is a post you wrote on entitled Children. Yeah, I think that was months ago,
Yes.
but it went fairly viral, actually.
Yeah.
Can you tell
Yeah.
us about that?
Yeah. So it's funny that I always joke, I'm like, yeah, that was when I was having one of my days, but it ended up being good because it needed to be said, and and thankfully got shared thousands and thousands of times, with, good supporting comments. But, you know, this is such a broad topic, but I'll kind of zone it in for time. But the thing is, I own my high school. I'm also a parent of, I have kids who are 14, 11, 7, and 3. So I've kind of got a big span.
You're in the trenches like I am. It's like we're
Yes.
parenting in every single stage right now. Like there's not one stage we're missing.
Yeah. And so it's like, I see it with not only my school, but my own kids and friends. And we play a million sports. I'm always around parents. And I just have gotten to the point where I cannot like take the entitlement of the kids and the parents supporting it. And I'm going to give you a perfect example of what kind of sparked all this. At my school, we had a situation with the vape pens. All the teenagers are trying this whole vaping thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to punch my kid if he does that. But anyway, so I found the vape pen and I called the parent and I said, so and so had the vape pen. They're going to be suspended. It's illegal not to have it at school. And the mom said to me, well, what'd you do about the other kids who have vape pens? And I was like, well, I'm not aware of anyone. And she's like, well, why are you calling me about my son when there's other kids that have it? And I was like, well, we'll deal with that if we find that. But right now, we're dealing with him. And she's like, well, I think you need to take care of everyone else before you talk about my son. And it just became this total flip. And when she came in, we were having a conversation and the kid was right there. And she was constantly like not ever taking accountability and for him, and he wasn't either. And he walked out of there with a smirk, almost like, yeah, I told you so. And that's just one instance. There's so many instances where I say to the kid, I'm like, if you don't do this or you don't put that away or this, I'm going to call your mom. And they're like, call her. She doesn't care. She's going to have my back no matter what. And it's just, this is constant. I'll be at sporting events and kids will say something to their moms and the mom will say no. And the kid will yell back at the mom and sometimes curse or say something bad and the mom just gives in. And I'm like, what are we doing? Like if someone calls me and says my kid did something, the first thing I'm going to do is go, okay, I'm coming in there right now to find out. And I'm never, especially in front of my kid, going to be like, well, I don't know if he did it. I may have that conversation alone, but I don't want my kid to know I'm on your teacher's side. We're going to, you need to be not scared, but you need to be, have a little bit of fear when your teacher's calling. And I feel like there's none of that anymore. And I talk, 90% of my friends are teachers, and it's just a huge problem. There's no more of, I'm going to call your mom. No, 90% of the kids don't care. Like, okay,
go for it.
Call her, or dad, call him, because nothing's going to get done, or the parent is going to, and this isn't every case. I'm just saying I see it a lot more. And as teachers, it's super frustrating because we have nothing anymore. That used to be the big thing. We're going to call home or you're going to, get a note home. Nobody cares anymore and nothing's done. And so here we are where we basically, the kid does something wrong. What are we going to do? Take away recess? There's no recess in high school. Like I have, a lot of times I don't have anything to take away or to get them in trouble with. You want a detention? No problem. I'll stay after school. So it's that it all kind of came from there. And it wasn't that one instance. It was a bunch of things I had just seen a lot. Like I said, not only at my school, but just being out with kids and their parents. And, I had some parents say to me, but sometimes the teacher's wrong, or sometimes we need to make sure we're on our kids' side. And listen, I get it. There are some situations where, something's inappropriate with the teacher, and obviously you're not going to have the teacher's side. But for the most part, I'm talking about those general notes home or teachers calling home. We have to have the teachers back because school's like half our kids' lives. Like we need to make sure that we're together, a partner with the teacher, and that there's some accountability and that we're not creating these entitled children, because I'm telling you, I get them in high school and it's bad. It's not setting them up for success.
No. And I think that's what we forget, right? As parents, or parents forget, your job is not to make sure that your kid is happy all the time. Your job is not to be their friend. It is to raise them into an adult who's going to be independent and successful and confident and, be able to forge their own way. And by backing them up all the time and coming to their rescue and kind of, taking the path of least resistance, we're not doing that. We're not setting them up for success. And for somewhere along the line, that became lost. And these kids, they're they're probably going to have a boss who's a jerk at some point in their life.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably going to have, a situation that they don't like, but they have to stay in. And if they're used to mom and dad coming to their rescue all the time, they don't have the skills to deal with that.
That's exactly it. And it's so funny because I use that exact example with a student I was talking with the other day. I said, because they were having trouble with a teacher at their old school, and they said she was this, she was that. And I said, listen, when you get older, you're probably going to have a boss at some point that you don't like who's mean to you. And there's nothing you can do. You have to just keep doing your job, be nice to them, and move on. And that it's such just a life skill. You're going to come across people, when you're a parent that you're on different teams with, or whatever it may be. There's just going to be people that you may not like something or get along with, and that you can't just quit. You can't say, your mom, get me out of that class. I don't like her.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how it works. And I think, I'm seeing now because honestly, a lot of them are coming to me, like I said, for different reasons, but a lot of it's entitlement. And I feel their parents kind of saved them the whole time. And now they're in high school, and the high schools are like, hey, you don't want to do it? Bye. You're getting an F. They don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I have to have that conversation with them in the beginning a lot, especially, and I have a private conversation with the parents because I want them to know you've got to work with us because we need to kind of tackle this together. And that's like new for them. So I just, but it's starting as low as elementary school. I'll tell you just from talking to tons of teachers. And I just think we need to kind of partner back up how it used to be. I mean, if you told me when I was in third grade, you were calling my mom or dad, I was shaken.
Mm-hmm.
I did not
and
want
as
to
you
deal
should
with
be.
that. Yes,
You
exactly.
should be. There should be an element of fear of your parents being mad. There should be like that. That's not a bad thing. And even when it comes to, and I don't even know where you stand on this, there's this whole thing, you should never yell at your kids, or it should never be. Sometimes as a parent, you do have to yell at your kids. And somewhere along the line, all the parents decided that you're not supposed to yell, or it's all supposed to be all hearts and sparkles and conversations. And now all of a sudden we have these kids who are super entitled. So something has shifted in a way that's not working.
I'm right there with you because that's exactly what is happening. And there's a big difference between yelling at your kid in discipline and yelling at your kid and cursing and calling their name in the book. I'm not talking about that, but I do think kids need to be yelled at. I do think they need to be disciplined, and that's our job. Like, that's the whole point. Like, if I was all the time saying to my kid, it's okay, sit down, listen, I get that we need to talk to our kids, and there are times that we need to, understand what happened, but they got to be disciplined and yelled at. And we're totally losing that. And like I said, that's, why these high schoolers are either dropping out or ending up at, different situations with, like at my school, or getting their GED, or it's a bad situation. And also too, I've talked to so many business owners that are like disgusted at the kids that are coming in for interviews. They say that they're not dressing up. They're just sitting there with their phones. They're just answering questions like they're having a conversation. No one's prepared for real life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I was talking to a local business owner, and he was saying, if there's one thing you can do at your school, please prepare them for an interview where they can answer questions and be professional. He's like, I can't tell you what it's like when they come in and they're just answering questions like they're sitting at the beach with a friend. And, it's just, I think there's a lot more we need to do, more than just academics, as far as real life skills and preparing them for the future.
Absolutely. Actually, Gary Vee.
Yeah.
So I was listening to his podcast the other day, and he was actually talking about education and how it's a bit of an outdated system. He's talking about like the periodic table and formulas and things we need to memorize and all of that stuff. He's like, right now you just ask Siri or you ask Alexis or whatever it is, and they'll give you the answer. We should be teaching kids about, interview skills, life skills, communication skills, how to be confident, how to figure things out on your own. Like, there's a lot of life skills that are really relevant in today's society that aren't even being taught anymore. It's just we're focusing on all of the wrong things.
Right. I know sometimes when I'm like teaching a math class at my high school, and we're talking about graphing polynomials, and I'm like, what in the world? I said, these kids in my head, I'm like, they need to learn life skills. No one's going to graph a polynomial unless you're doing something, if you're into science or math, which I get. And I think that should come in your college when you're zoning in on, your specific thing you're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
But I really, I'm constantly telling my parents, we're trying as much as we can to, at least at my school, put in those life skills just because it's just lacking so much. But the entitlement, I can only do so much on my end as the educator and the principal. But if there's one thing I just wish parents would do is just recognize, that we need to team up with the teachers. It's going to make a huge difference.
Yeah, you're all on the same team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, amazing. Now, one last question I have before we wrap up. I don't know about you in the States. Do you guys have, we have first, second, and third place ribbons, right? When you do an event or a sports
Mm-hmm.
game or whatever, a tournament. Here in Canada, or in our district at least, my stepdaughter said the one day, she's like, oh, well, I got third. And I said, oh, that's amazing. She's like, but they gave out 3 firsts, 3 seconds, and 3 thirds. I'm like, oh, so you got ninth. She says, yeah. I said, okay. Do you guys have that there? Is that what's going on?
No, I've never heard of that.
Or participation medals and like, thanks for coming out medals? Or is that just here in Canada?
So, no, we do have participation trophies and medals in the lower. So, like, all my kids, when they're in that like 5-year-old, like t-ball for baseball or like the 5-year-old soccer, there's always in the rec leagues a participation trophy. And it's so funny because I see so much, about that and how people, we should only get first, second, and third. And listen, it's like I go back and forth. I really don't think it's a big deal only because my kids play like travel as well, which is competitive, you only get first or second, end of story. And I feel like these rec leagues are very like, everyone's great. Yay. Everyone gets a trophy. Everyone gets to shoot the ball at least once.
Yeah.
But I've never heard of the 3 first, 3 second, 3 third. That's just trying to make everybody feel good. And that's
Everyone's
not
a winner.
real life.
Everyone's not a winner. Everyone is not a winner. When you go to a job interview, no one is sending you a little prize because you came. You got the job or you didn't get the job. And that's another piece that I really am struggling with how we're raising kids right now. My stepson plays travel soccer. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it changed this year or not. I didn't actually pay that much attention, but up until last year, and he's 11 and it was travel. It was, tryouts, all of that. It was just a festival. It wasn't a tournament. And there were no winners and no losers. There's a winner and there's a loser. If you've lost, you need to decide, are you going to do better? Or are you going to try something else? Right? Like that's how life works.
Right. And that's just it. I told my son, like when he tries out for his middle school team, and we were having a conversation last night because my second one is in 6th grade. And I said, are you going to try out for the soccer team? And he said, well, I don't know. A lot of the kids are good. And I said, okay. And if you don't make it, you don't make it. Like that's part of life. It's fine. Like who cares? And for him, he's like, I can't try if I'm not going to make it. I'm like, yes, you can. You're going to try out for a lot of things in your life and you're not going to make it. And so I think that's good. I always go back when I was like 15, my mom said I had to get a part-time job, and I'll never forget. Thank God she did this, but she like drove me around and just like would pull up the place and she's like, get out, go get an application. And I'd be like, what am I supposed to do? And she's like, get the application, fill it out, ask if they have any positions. And I'm like, what if they say no? She's like, they say no and get back in the car, we go to the next place. And I'm like, that's it? She's like, yeah. And I remember that day, like 10 out of the 15 places saying no. And, for whatever reason, they didn't have any positions. And by the 6th, 7th, I was no big deal to me. And I never forget that because I thought she was right. Like, what's the worst they can say? No, or you didn't make it? Like, okay, try out next year or try out for a different team. It's not the end of the world. Yeah. And I think that's it. Everyone thinks like these kids are taking these little things and acting like it's the end of the world. And I'm like, hello, this is like super minor. You need to learn how to get over it. And this cannot be, you're sobbing for days, not talking to anyone because you didn't make a team or you didn't win first place. Like I tell my kids, my boys play competitive basketball, and sometimes when they lose, they're upset. And, it's a hard game and I get it. And I always tell them, I go, you have 5 minutes and then I'm done.
Yeah.
No more sobbing. I'll get your cry out, feel bad, 5 minutes. That's it.
Feel the feels and then buck up.
Yep. That's it. suck it up
Yeah.
and move on. And they look at me sometimes and I'm like, no, I'm not kidding. We're not going to sit here and sob for an hour, waste an hour of our time because we lost. Oh, well, we'll do better next time. Work on something.
Yeah. And you know what? It's crazy because this comes back to the whole entrepreneurship conversation that we were having. My husband, when I first started this, and, I do some work with brands and I do some, different consulting things like that. And there were times where I would be getting tons of no's. And I would be so discouraged and say, you know what, I don't know if this is going to happen. I think maybe I should just go back to Children's Aid, or, maybe I should just not be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
He said to me, because he very much started his own gig too. And he's like, do you know how many no's I got from at the very beginning? He goes, I could talk to 100 people and maybe one would give me a meeting. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they worked with me. Like, that is how you build a successful life, by getting all of those no's. Like, you have to plow through those no's until you get the yeses. That's life. And, it's crazy how this conversation kind of just came, like, it all kind of worked out because we're talking about the same thing. It's basically just life skills.
It really is. Yeah. And that's it. You're gonna lose along the way. You're gonna get no's. And that's just, I actually think you can't be successful without that. Like, I think if you go your whole life and you're just winning, everything's clouds and rainbows and sparkles, you're just going to expect that when you're adult, and that's not it. So I truly, I 100% agree. That's just a life skill. And it's with your, your sports, your school, your jobs, and business life. And I don't think I would be anywhere near the way I am as far as running my business and my thinking without all those failures along the way.
Yes. Everyone has it. All the most successful people will have their failure stories. Like, they're all sharing their failure stories because it didn't just happen overnight.
Exactly. And I actually told myself that the other day because, I do not have a lot of extra time, obviously, but I try. My whole point of my personal social media is to share my story, just to like empower other women, because mine's such like a fluke that it happened. But I was telling myself the other day, I said, I'm always posting about like my success or, motivating other people. But I was like, I need to, when I start to really think about all my bumps in the road, there's some really cool stories that really shaped my business today. So I was like, I need to start sharing those because I think that other people would see it's not always perfect, like you said, a highlight reel.
For sure. And I'm going to call you out on something right there because you just said it was a fluke that it happened. I don't know if it was a fluke that it happened. I think it was an idea and an opportunity that came, and you decided to take action on it. And you decided to put your head down and create something out of a need. So make sure you're giving yourself enough credit. This all didn't just like come to your doorstep and just, hand you this business in a package. Like, you've worked your tail off for the success that you have. So make sure you're patting yourself on the back for all that you've accomplished. All right, Lisa, where can everyone find you if they're looking for more information on you, or they're looking for more information on your curriculum?
Yeah, so on all social media platforms, you can follow me at Lisa Collum CEO, and I share both businesses and the stories and all that. And then specifically for my curriculum, if you're interested in anything with writing, whether it be in schools or at home, that website is www.topscorewriting.com. And on all social media as well, you can find us at Top Score Writing.
Amazing. And I will link that for everyone in the show description and my show notes. And so thank you so much, Lisa. I could talk to you all day about entitled children, entrepreneurship, all the things. So thank you so much for coming on.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, guys, if you like this podcast, please do me a little favor. Take a second and subscribe on iTunes, and then screenshot this podcast, give it a share in social media, and tell your friends what you think. And hey, don't forget to tag me so that I can thank you for helping me spread the word. Thanks so much, and I will talk to you next week.